You're not using that credit score anyway, Gabriella. Someone in this family needs to put your name to good use. My sister Jasmine leaned in close, her breath smelling of expensive mimosa, and clinked her champagne flute against my water glass. She gestured grandly toward the driveway where her brand-new $90,000 Range Rover sat gleaming in the sun. She laughed, a sound that usually made me shrink. But today, I didn't shrink. I didn't blink. I just looked at her. Because Jasmine didn't know she had just confessed to federal bank fraud to a senior forensic accountant for the FBI. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I didn't storm out. Storming out implies emotion. It implies I was hurt, or jealous, or surprised. I was none of those things. I simply checked my watch, told my mother Susan I had a shift to cover, and walked to my 5-year-old Honda Civic. Behind me, the laughter from the brunch table grew louder, fueled by more champagne and the comforting certainty that boring, reliable Gabriella had left the room. To my family, I am a data entry clerk for a medical billing company. I make $45,000 a year. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment in a zip code my mother refuses to visit. I wear cardigans that are 2 seasons out of date, and I never, ever have an opinion. They think I am a failure. What they don't know is that being boring is the most sophisticated form of camouflage in the world. In my line of work, we call it the gray rock method. It's a psychological strategy usually taught to victims of abuse, but at the Bureau, we use it for surveillance. If you become a gray rock, uninteresting, unresponsive, flat, the narcissist's eyes slide right off you. You become furniture. And people say the most incriminating things in front of furniture. Jasmine would never have admitted to a federal crime if she thought I was an equal. She confessed because, to her, I am an NPC in the video game of her life. I am safe because I am irrelevant. I drove the speed limit all the way back to my apartment. My hands were steady on the wheel. My pulse was resting at 62 beats per minute. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. When Jasmine forged my signature, she stopped being my sister and became a subject. I unlocked my apartment door. To the untrained eye, my home looks sparse, maybe even a little sad. Secondhand couch, no art on the walls, a laptop on a simple desk, but the laptop isn't a consumer model. It's a government-issued secure terminal with biometric access. I sat down, scanned my thumbprint, and watched the screen shift from the generic personal desktop to the encrypted federal interface. I didn't call my mom to cry. I didn't text Jasmine to beg her to pay it back. I initiated a credit inquiry on myself. The screen populated instantly. And there it was. A bridge loan from a private equity lender. $102,000. Originated 3 weeks ago. Status: current, but only because the first payment hadn't come due yet. I clicked on the details. The address listed wasn't my current apartment. It was an old P.O. box I hadn't used in 3 years. She had done it. She had actually done it. I leaned back in my chair. Most people would feel betrayed. They would feel the hot, stinging tears of a sister scorned. I just felt the cold, mechanical click of a trap snapping shut. Jasmine thought she was building an empire. She didn't realize she was building a case file, and she had just handed the prosecution the first piece of evidence. I opened a new digital folder. I didn't name it Jasmine. I named it Case File 492. Then I started typing. The screen glowed with the cold blue light of the credit report, illuminating the lie my sister had been living. $102,000. It wasn't a mortgage. It wasn't a student loan. It was a high-interest bridge loan, the kind of financing usually reserved for desperate businesses trying to make payroll before they go under. And there it was, my name, tethered to her desperation. I didn't stop there. A forensic accountant doesn't just look at the debt. She looks at the ecosystem that created it. I opened a new tab and began the digital autopsy of Jasmine's life. To the outside world, my sister is a visionary interior designer. Her Instagram is a curated gallery of marble countertops, Italian silk drapes, and that brand new Range Rover. But social media is just evidence of spending, not income. I accessed public records. The design firm, the one my parents brag about at every country club dinner, had 3 lien filings against it in the last 6 months. Her exclusive studio in the city, eviction proceedings were initiated 2 weeks ago. The $90,000 car wasn't bought with profits. It was a lease she was already 2 months behind on. It was a house of cards built on a foundation of quicksand. And that's when I understood the mechanism behind the crime. In sociology, There is a concept called the golden child's burden. Families like mine assign roles early. Jasmine was the golden child, the shiny object, the proof of my parents' success. I was the scapegoat, the drab background that made her shine brighter. But the golden child isn't a position of power. It's a position of endless, crushing pressure. You have to be perfect. You have to be rich. You have to be the winner. Always. When reality starts to crack that image, when the debt piles up and the winner starts losing, they experience what psychologists call a narcissistic injury. It's a panic so deep it feels like dying. Jasmine wasn't stealing from me because she was greedy. She was stealing from me because she was starving. She needed fuel to keep the golden facade burning, and I was the only available resource. In her mind, devouring her useless sister wasn't a crime. It was a survival mechanism. She simply couldn't conceive that the scapegoat might actually be the one holding the power. I looked at the numbers again. The loan she took out in my name wasn't for an investment. It was to pay off the back rent on her studio and the lease on the Range Rover. She had burned my credit score just to buy herself another month of pretending she was better than me. Most people would see a villain. I saw a drowning woman who had decided to climb on top of my head to keep breathing. It was pathetic. It was tragic. And it was going to be the evidence that put her in federal prison. I saved the files, backed them up to a secure server, and prepared for the next step. I had the what and the why. Now, I needed the confession. I gave her one chance. Not because I owed her mercy, but because a comprehensive investigation requires ruling out all other possibilities. I needed to document that the subject was given an opportunity to cure the default and refused. It was the final box on my checklist before I initiated the nuclear option. I drove to my parents' house in Lake Forest on a Tuesday evening. Jasmine was there, of course, consulting with my mother Susan on new drapes for the living room. When I walked in, they didn't even look up from the fabric swatches. I asked to speak to Jasmine alone. She sighed, rolled her eyes at our mother, as if to say, "Here we go," and followed me into the den. "I know about the loan," I said. My voice was flat. No inflection. $102,000. Bridge financing. High interest. Jasmine didn't flinch. She didn't look guilty. She smiled, a tight, patronizing expression she usually reserved for waitstaff. "I told you, Gabriella. I'm handling it. It's a leverage play. You wouldn't understand. You used my name," I continued. "You forged my signature. That is fraud. I want you to pay it off. Today. Or transfer the debt to your own name." She laughed. It was a sharp, ugly sound. "Pay it off? With what? My capital is tied up, and I can't transfer it. My debt-to-income ratio is too high right now. That's why I used you. You're sitting on perfect credit and doing absolutely nothing with it. It's wasteful. It's illegal," I said. Then she stepped closer, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "You really don't get it, do you? I didn't just need the money. I needed to teach you a lesson. You think you're so superior with your little savings account and your little budget, but you have no skin in the game. That's why I used your old address on the application." I froze. "My old address? The P.O. box you closed 3 years ago." She smirked. "I figured the default notices would go there, and by the time you found out, your credit would be trashed. Maybe then you'd understand what it's like to actually struggle. Maybe then you'd stop looking down on people who take risks." It wasn't just theft. It was sabotage. She had engineered the loan to fail specifically to destroy my financial standing. She wanted to break me because my stability made her feel insecure. Before I could respond, the door opened. My father, Joseph, walked in, followed by my mother. They sensed the tension immediately. "What is going on in here?" Joseph demanded. "Gabriella is harassing me about business finances," Jasmine said, instantly shifting into victim mode. "She's jealous that I'm actually making moves while she's stuck in data entry." "I'm not jealous," I said, looking at my father. "She stole my identity. She took out a 6-figure loan in my name, and just admitted she plans to let it default to ruin my credit." I expected shock. I expected outrage. Instead, my mother sighed. "Oh, Gabriella, don't be so dramatic," Susan said, waving her hand dismissively. "Jasmine is building an empire. She needs liquidity. We all help each other in this family. You should be flattered she trusts you enough to involve you." "She committed a felony," I stated. "She borrowed some credit," Joseph corrected, his voice stern. "Stop using words you don't understand. Your sister is under a lot of pressure. If you can't be supportive, then maybe you should leave until you can adjust your attitude." I looked at them. I looked at the 3 people who were supposed to protect me. I saw the sneer on Jasmine's face, the annoyance on my mother's, the disappointment on my father's. They didn't see a victim. They saw an obstacle to their golden child's success. Okay, I said. I understand perfectly. Arguments are for people who think they can change the outcome. I knew the outcome was already mathematical. I turned around and walked out of the house. As I reached my car, I didn't feel sad. I felt the cold, heavy weight of absolute clarity. They had made their choice. They had declared their allegiance. I sat in the driver's seat and pulled out my phone. I opened the voice memo app. The recording was 17 minutes long. Every word, every admission, every dismissal captured in high-definition audio. Jasmine had confessed to intent. My parents had confessed to complicity. I stopped being their daughter in that driveway. I put the car in reverse and backed out. It was time to go to work. The drive home was silent. No speeding, no angry music, just the hum of the engine and the calculation of assets versus liabilities. When I walked into my apartment, I didn't take off my shoes. I sat directly at my secure terminal and initiated Protocol 14. In the Bureau, Protocol 14 isn't a formal code, but it's a mindset known among white-collar crime investigators. It's the moment you stop being a human being with feelings and start being a machine that processes evidence. It is the complete and total amputation of empathy. My sister Jasmine wasn't family anymore. She was a target. My parents weren't my mother and father. They were collateral damage. I logged into the federal database and flagged the loan for suspicious activity. Then, I began the forensic reconstruction of Jasmine's financial history. This is where amateurs get caught. They think money is liquid, that it flows and disappears like water. But to a forensic accountant, money is ink. It stains everything it touches. We call it the inevitability of the paper trail. Every time Jasmine clicked accept on a digital form, every time she transferred funds from one shell account to another, every time she forged a signature, she wasn't just stealing money. She was building her own prison cell, brick by digital brick. She thought she was being clever by moving assets around, but she was just leaving a map that led straight to her wrists. I traced the $102,000. It hadn't gone to business expenses. $50,000 had gone to a luxury car dealership. $20,000 to a high-end wedding planner for a party she was throwing herself. $12,000 to a retainer for a crisis PR firm. She was burning stolen cash to maintain the illusion of success. But then, I found something I wasn't looking for. I was cross-referencing the IP addresses used to sign the loan documents when I noticed a pattern. The same IP address, Jasmine's home Wi-Fi, had been used to access 3 other lending portals in the last 6 months. I pulled the applications. They weren't in my name. The first was a home equity line of credit for $75,000. Applicant, Joseph and Susan. The second was a personal consolidation loan for $40,000. Applicant, Joseph. The third was a credit card with a $50,000 limit, maxed out. Applicant, Susan. I pulled the signature pages. They were clumsy forgeries. Digital pastes of my parents' signatures lifted from old tax documents. Jasmine hadn't just targeted me because I was the gray rock. She had targeted our parents because they were blind. They were defending the very person who was actively bankrupting them. They were scolding me for being unsupportive while Jasmine was stripping the equity out of their retirement home to pay for her vanity. I sat back, the glow of the monitor illuminating the empty room. The anger was gone. In its place was a terrifying, cold precision. This wasn't just bank fraud anymore. It was elder financial abuse. It was a racketeer-influenced and corrupt organization's case in miniature. I printed the documents. I organized the IP logs. I burned the audio recording of her confession onto an encrypted drive. I compiled the dossier, 3 inches thick, binding it with a heavy clip. It was a lethal weapon made of paper. My parents wanted me to support the family? Fine. I would support them by removing the parasite that was feeding on us all. I checked the calendar. Saturday night, the business launch gala. Jasmine's big night to show off her empire. It was perfect. I picked up my phone and dialed the Assistant United States Attorney on the emergency line. This is Agent Gabriella. I have an urgent indictment request. Priority 1. Yes, I have the evidence. All of it. The Lux Life launch party was held in the ballroom of the Lake Forest Country Club. It was exactly the kind of event Jasmine lived for, an orgy of superficiality disguised as a business achievement. There were ice sculptures, a champagne fountain, and a room full of local socialites congratulating my sister on her success. My parents, Joseph and Susan, were holding court near the bar, beaming as if they had personally invented capitalism. I didn't enter through the front door with an invitation. I entered through the service entrance with a 12-person federal tactical team. We cut the music first. The silence that descended on the room was instant and heavy. Then, we moved in. I wasn't wearing my usual oversized cardigan or my scuffed flats. I was wearing my standard-issue FBI windbreaker, with federal agent emblazoned in yellow block letters across the back, a Kevlar vest, and my badge clipped visibly to my belt. My hair was pulled back. My face was scrubbed clean of any sisterly affection. Jasmine was on the small stage, microphone in hand, midway through a speech about manifesting abundance. She froze. When she saw me, her first instinct wasn't fear. It was annoyance. "Gabriella?" She laughed nervously into the microphone, trying to spin the intrusion into a joke for her guests. "Oh my God, everyone, this is my little sister. She must have hired actors? Is this a murder mystery game? You are so dramatic." She started to descend the stairs, a tight, angry smile plastered on her face. She hissed under her breath as she got close. "What the hell are you doing? You are ruining my night. Get these strippers or whatever they are out of here." "I'm not a stripper, Jasmine," I said. My voice carried across the silent room. "And I'm not a data entry clerk." "Gabriella, stop it!" My mother Susan rushed forward, her face flushed with embarrassment. "Take that ridiculous jacket off. You are embarrassing your sister in front of investors." "Step back, ma'am," one of my agents barked, stepping between us. Susan gasped, clutching her pearls like a character in a bad movie. "It's okay, Agent Miller," I said calmly. I stepped forward, closing the distance to Jasmine. "Jasmine Marie, I have a federal warrant for your arrest." Jasmine scoffed, rolling her eyes. "For what? Being too fabulous? Go home, Gabriella. You're drunk. For bank fraud, wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and money laundering," I listed, my tone clinical. "You are also being indicted on 3 counts of elder financial abuse." "That's ridiculous," my father Joseph sputtered, pushing his way to the front. "She's a successful businesswoman. She just bought a Range Rover." "Gabriella, I demand you stop this charade. You are just jealous because your sister is a winner and you're a nobody." "I am a senior special agent with the FBI White-Collar Crimes Division," I announced, pulling my credentials and holding them up. The gold shield caught the light of the chandeliers. "I have been building a case against this business for 3 weeks. The Range Rover is stolen property. The launch party was paid for with fraudulent funds. And the investors in this room?" I looked around at the horrified crowd. "You're all witnesses." Jasmine tried to run. It was a reflex, a stupid, panic-induced flight response. She took 2 steps toward the fire exit before Agent Miller tackled her. The sound of her expensive dress ripping was louder than the gasp from the crowd. She was handcuffed face down on the parquet floor she had paid for with my credit. "You can't do this," she screamed, her face pressed against the wood. "Mom! Dad! Help me! She's lying." My parents looked at me, their eyes wide with shock and confusion. They were waiting for the punchline. They were waiting for me to apologize and go back to being the gray rock. I walked over to my father. I didn't offer comfort. I reached into my tactical file case and pulled out the dossier I had compiled. "You think she's a winner?" I asked. "She didn't just steal my identity, Dad. She stole yours." I handed him the papers. The forged home equity line of credit. The maxed-out credit cards in my mother's name. The foreclosure notice on their house that Jasmine had been intercepting and hiding for months. "She forged your signatures," I said, pointing to the digital pastes. "She stripped the equity out of your retirement home to pay for this party. You're not rich, Dad. You're bankrupt. She spent it all." My father looked at the documents. His hands started to shake. He looked at the signature, a clumsy, pixelated forgery of his own name. Then he looked at Jasmine, who was currently being hauled to her feet by 2 agents, her mascara running down her face. "Jasmine," he whispered, "is this true?" "It was an investment," Jasmine shrieked, struggling against the cuffs. "I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. If Gabriella hadn't ruined everything, we would all be rich. It's her fault." "Read her rights," I ordered Agent Miller. "Gabriella," my mother sobbed, reaching for me. "Please, she's your sister." "She's a felon," I said, stepping out of her reach. "And I'm the federal agent who caught her. Take her away." I watched them drag the golden child out of the ballroom. She wasn't shining anymore. She was just a criminal in a ripped dress, screaming at the people she had scammed. The guests began to scatter, fleeing the scene of the social crime. I looked at my parents one last time. They were standing in the wreckage of their illusions, holding the paperwork that proved their favorite daughter had cannibalized their future. They looked old. They looked small. "I'd advise you to get a lawyer," I said. "You're going to need one for the bankruptcy proceedings." I turned on my heel and walked out. I didn't look back. Protocol 14 was complete. The sentencing hearing was brief. Federal courtrooms are not designed for drama. They are designed for finality. Jasmine stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit that clashed violently with her complexion. Her hair, usually a chemically engineered shade of platinum blonde, was showing dark roots. She looked small. She looked ordinary. "Jasmine Marie," the judge said, peering over her spectacles. "You have been convicted of 14 counts of federal fraud, aggravated identity theft, and elder financial abuse. You targeted the people who loved you most. You exploited their trust, not out of necessity, but out of vanity." Jasmine tried to speak, tried to launch into one of her rehearsed speeches about being a misunderstood entrepreneur. But the judge cut her off. "This court sentences you to 96 months in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $340,000. All assets purchased with fraudulent funds are hereby seized." My mother Susan let out a sob that echoed in the quiet room. My father Joseph just stared at the floor, his face gray. He had lost his retirement. He had lost his home. He had lost his golden child. I didn't feel happy. Happiness is too light a word for what I felt. I felt the deep, settling weight of balance being restored. The ledger was finally clean. Outside the courthouse, the air was crisp. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from my supervisor at the bureau. "Excellent work on the Jasmine Marie case. The U.S. attorney was impressed with the forensic trail. Your promotion to unit chief has been approved." I smiled. I typed back, "Just doing my job." I walked to my car, still the same modest Honda Civic. I didn't need a Range Rover to know who I was. I didn't need a gala to feel successful. I sat in the driver's seat and opened my laptop one last time. I pulled up my credit report. Score: 820. Status: clean. I closed the laptop. The case file was closed. The gray rock had done its job. I started the engine and drove away, leaving the courthouse and my old life in the rearview mirror. I was done being invisible. I was Agent Gabriella, and I had work to do. If you believe that justice should always be served, no matter who the criminal is, hit that like button and share this story. And if you've ever had to go gray rock to survive a toxic family, tell me your story in the comments. I read every single one.